people needing to work together. That may sound overly simple. Boy, it's not. Sometimes, if we don't understand each other, if we're talking past each other, or maybe, somebody to just help facilitate a conversation. So a really talented Scrum Master can employ all those little skills like actively listening, focusing on whether somebody is not understanding or somebody's confused. They're also
Hello. Welcome to another Knowledge Bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Angela Johnson. If this is your first time joining us, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and hit that like button. This will be greatly appreciated in helping getting out this content to great leaders and great individuals like yourself. Angela is a certified Scrum Trainer, Agile guide, and founder of Collaborative Leadership Team. In 2010, she founded the company to provide education and consulting services to clients adapting Scrum and Agile. The company serves many organizations undergoing their journey, including software, hardware, services, and marketing, and more. Please help me welcome Angela with Scrum Master tips, tools, and strategies.
This is Cedric Francis, and you are listening to Lead to Greatness.
I've been a bit of a broken corporate employee for over a decade, just the grind and working for someone else, and was working as a contractor, which, many people in this day and age, right? The gig economy, people like to, work on an hourly rate, contract themselves out so they can be more in charge. Right. Well, as I started doing that, I noticed that the people that were lining up these gigs were taking their cut, taking a margin, not really adding a lot of value in the process. I'm like, how hard could that be? I can do that. Yeah. So I started contracting more of a corp to corp basis with some of my clients, and I got busy. So then it's like, well, shoot, I'm busy. How do I get help? How do I attract other like-minded individuals to join me in what I'm doing? Yeah. And the rest, as they say, is history. So 13 years ago, I started the firm and then just started hiring the members of the dream team. And here we are. We're going to turn 14 in June of this year.
Wow. So when you started the business, how did the business start? Is it still the same model, still the same focus, or did it shift over the last 13 years?
It's a really great question. 13 years ago, we were definitely virtual, because a lot of consultants are, every Starbucks is your office, or every, coffee shop is your office. Absolutely. And in growing our space, one of the things that we found was holding our workshops in hotel ballrooms or some of these, dumpy little office centers just was hurting our brand. So in 2019, we actually opened our own training and event center, which is where I'm having this conversation from with you today. Wow. 8,000 square feet. And we thought, well, hey, we're going to have this awesome space to deliver our own events and workshops, but then other people can license the space out for their needs as well. Right? 2019, let's get into commercial real estate right before a global pandemic. Wow. What a great idea. So we've definitely had to pivot quite a bit. So we survived COVID, thankfully. And the business is doing great for the event center. That part is just bouncing back like crazy. Awesome. So the space had to be locked down, but as business owners, myself, and then I have a minority shareholder, we were able to come in to check on the space. So we got busy doing stuff like this. I know maybe some of your listeners can't see it, but I showed you my cool acoustic panels on our whiteboards. We made a couple of the rooms into these little studios so that we could hold a professional virtual training class in this environment to still make use for the space. Yeah. And then as the governor started opening things up, we were all over those rules. I mean, every little mandate, hand sanitizer, you have to have the table 6 feet apart, all these things, right? We just worked it. So we never missed a beat. And actually, with all the assistance that was out there, we did get our PPP loan. We also got the idle loan that the government was giving, but we wound up giving it back in 2020 because we didn't need it.
Wow.
By the end of the year, we'd found our footing, thankfully, and we're able to give that back.
Scrum's master.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest with you. This is the first time I ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know much about it. And there may be someone that's listening that's just like me, like, okay, what is that? What did you just say? Is that some type of fruit? Is it some type of a video game? What in the world is this? So what I want you to do is I want you to explain to us what is Scrum Master and why is it necessary?
Absolutely. Have you heard of rugby?
Yes.
So the formation the rugby players get in when they're trying to get the ball, it's called a scrummage. So Scrum is just inspired by that rugby-like approach where people are banding together, people are coming together to work as a team and get the ball headed towards a common goal. And so it is a framework. So it's called Scrum, and it is one of those agile ways of working. And you already nailed agile, right? Pivot, adapt, nimble. So Scrum is just one way to do that. A Scrum Master is kind of like a sensei, kind of like the person who gets people to work well together, helps the organization adopt this new way of working. So one of the things I tell new Scrum Masters that they need is people skills, more people skills. Did I mention people skills? And you and I were talking about COVID. So we had a graduate who sticks out in my mind as you were talking. She was in the hospitality industry. So she was a hostess and a bartender at a restaurant here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, where I am. And as so many bars and restaurants, during COVID, they just completely went out of business. They couldn't pivot. So she was out of a job. And she said, I never want to be in this situation again. I want to do something different, but I have all this great, service-minded attitude, people skills. Could I get into this Scrum stuff? So I met her when she came to my team's virtual user group. We just started doing a virtual online, once a month, getting people who do this and people who are interested in this together. And she was able to take one of our workshops. And at the time, there was lots of assistance out there. Yeah. The PPP and the idle. So there was education offerings for people who had lost their job. So she came to my class with some of that assistance. Within 6 months of taking a certified Scrum Master class with me, she got her first Scrum Master job just by networking with some of my clients that were coming to those user group meetings. And she actually is still in touch with me because she just hit her 2-year mark because, we're 2 to 3 years past 2020. And she's been able to come to an advanced program. So it's worked out really, really well for her. She was able to take those skills she had and just make a major pivot, when she lost her job during COVID. But we've got clients that are doing this with manufacturing, with software, services organizations like marketing firms or agencies. So what's common about all these industries? People doing work, and so when you talk about people needing to work together, that may sound overly simple. Boy, it's not, is it? I mean, sometimes, if we don't understand each other, if we're talking past each other, or maybe, somebody to just help facilitate a conversation. So a really talented Scrum Master can employ all those little skills like actively listening, focusing on whether somebody is not understanding or somebody's confused. They're also a coach, more of a mentor to help people. Oftentimes, I think we get stuck in our own head. So I always say, our ego, that little frontal part of the brain that talks to us all day long, I always say your ego is not your amigo, because that thing starts telling you stuff that just isn't true. Like, oh, I can't figure this out. Oh, I can't ask for help. People will think I look dumb. Oh, people will think, I don't know the answer. Come on, we're better together. We're better learning from each other and helping each other out. So a really talented Scrum Master can kind of get people past that kind of stuff and get them out of their own head and get them working together as a team. And then we all win. We all learn new skills. the company meets its goals and objectives. So that's why I'm passionate about this way of working. I've been working this way for almost 20 years now, and I don't know what else I would do. It's a really advanced technique called talking to each other.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? I might have to break that down a little bit, but it's just so simple that we don't, talk to each other. And I think with working virtually, which many people are, post COVID, if companies have let their space go, I think that we're not doing that enough. That may come more naturally, meeting by the water cooler or the coffee machine or whatever. And so I think a Scrum Master can remind people you're not alone. Hey, the phone still works, right? We've got all these fancy tools to communicate with each other, like Slack channels and chats and texts and things like that. But one of the things we like in the Scrum community, it's just a good idea for any team. We tend to call them working agreements, because any team, regardless of which team guru you read, most of them say that a team is a group of people doing anything together. So what makes a team is that doing anything together part. And so those working agreements can have things like, how are we going to make decisions when we get stuck? Is it majority rules? Is it rock, paper, scissors? I mean, what is our agreement going to be when inevitably we're in that situation? Why wait till we're in that situation? Let's actually have an agreement that we can abide by with each other, so that in that moment, we're not wasting a lot of time, browbeating each other into submission. We can just say, oh, this is majority rules. Let's call for a vote. Let's move on. Or it can even have behavioral things. My own team likes to use humor. We all got little snarky senses of humor. And years ago, we had somebody who would use our working agreement as an excuse, because it's right in our working agreement that it's okay. It's okay, right? To crack jokes. It's okay to use humor. But he would use it to hurt. He would just kind of, right? Just like use it to dig into somebody. And then he'd point it right at the working agreement. Oh, but it's okay to use humor. Well, he got voted off the island. He got invited not to work here anymore. And then we updated that working agreement to say it is okay to still use humor as long as you're not using it to hurt. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So we have that agreement with each other. And then, of course, you can do the tactical things, like we have a daily call. Most people come into the office again, but sometimes people are just out of the office. So we'll hold it over Zoom or Google Hangout or whatever. So we do that at noon. We just 12 to 12:15 every day. We're just going to check in every day. We can show each other respect for, 15 lousy minutes or less to see if anybody needs help, or to plan what's going on or plan the next day. So there's all kinds of things a team can put into one of those agreements. They can be informal or they can be formal, but it's going to require talking to each other to get it started.
Wow. I love it. I love the thought of the work agreement. And I know this, when you're dealing with people, even with a working agreement, there's going to always be a disagreement.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that real quick. Can you tell us about a time when you dealt with conflict or disagreement within the team, and how did you resolve that?
The disagreement is very important, because what a Scrum Master can do in those moments is they can say, does the working agreement no longer work for you? Because that's possible. I mean, they could have expiration dates. Yeah. I mean, we could reevaluate this. But I had some pretty tough conflict not so long ago with a team that was doing a lot of what we call triangulation. Do you know what I mean? You and I talk, and then I go talk to somebody else, and then they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and it's just all this he said, she said, all this.
Yeah.
So we had a really cool coach help our own team. So I like to steal some of those tricks. And she called it dialing direct. So if you come to me and start just about somebody else on the team or something that's going on, I can say, have you gone direct to that person? Because if you haven't, it's pretty disrespectful for me to collude. And if they persist, the way to get out of it is to redirect them is, do you need my help in having the conversation? Do you need my help to help facilitate that conversation? Or, you really need to try going direct. And I got to tell you, when we introduced that in that situation, it just cut down all that noise. It just stopped all that stuff that was just toxic in its tracks.
Angela, that is a knowledge bomb. Wow, because this is like mind blowing because it's so easy. It's so easy when someone comes to you about somebody else. It's so easy to engage and get caught up in the conversation. And now you have become a part of the problem instead of the part of the solution. So that is really great. Listen, I love it. I have to say this again. 2 questions that Angela brought to us, Lead to Greatness community. And I want you to really listen to this because this is something that can avoid conflicts or worse conflicts from happening or mess or teams breaking up or just chaos in the workplace. And the first question is, have you gone directly to that individual that you're talking to me about? Have you gone directly to them? And if they haven't, the follow-up question is, do you need my help to go to them? Will we go together? Or what do you need from him? I love it. I love it. Do you have any icing? I mean, that cake is real sweet and really is ready to eat and it's cooked already. But do you have any icing just to go on there, some sprinkles or something you want to put on the top?
Yes. Then if they persist, they keep going. Well, what did you do in the situation to help? Me? No. I came to complain about my coworker. Yeah. What did you do in the situation to help? Or what could you do next that would help? Because now you've really stopped them in their tracks with whatever agenda was playing in their head. And you've got them thinking about their own behavior. Now they have to, what did I do? What could I do? And now we've redirected them. Now we've redirected them into thinking about solving the problem, like you said, as opposed to stirring the pot. How is that for sprinkles? Was that good for sprinkles?
That is a sprinkle knowledge bomb. That is amazing. Thank you. Man, you just gave us 3 questions that really should turn some things around. Even within your organization right now, I mean, you can add value to your organization right now by becoming a Scrum Master and able to pull a team together. And it can really put you in some great places to add value to your life, to add value to what you do. And when you add value, if you're in the right environment, when you add value, you would get valued. And I think that helps with, finance and making more money because now you're significant. Now you stand out. Now you're not like everybody else. So I think that is something great. I want you to speak a little bit more on that for individuals, in these 2 different sectors. You got the leader, you got the entrepreneur, and you have the coworker.
Yeah. And these ideas, like you said, are pretty universal. And sometimes I won't even use the Scrummy language. I won't even, say Scrum or Agile, or even if there's that idea of a 15-minute or less daily. Sure, that comes out of the Scrum framework. But honestly, I don't know any project or any piece of work that couldn't be helped by, hey, instead of talking once a week, instead of talking once a month, can we check in for 15 minutes or less daily? Because now you're going to find out the bad news sooner and certainly the good news. So you have more opportunities to pivot. And so leaders can really cut down on some of the noise in their organizations, get people working together and start focusing on goals and objectives by implementing this. But then also the individuals doing the work, right? Whether they're an entrepreneur or not, or whether they get a full-time paycheck from a company, a lot of these ways of working are just different choices. I'm all for having work to go well and to work better with people. That's the part that people like. It's their coworkers and their teams and those kinds of things. And so anything that we can do to improve that is usually okay, regardless of the type of environment.
Yeah. And I can only imagine, I mean, even a marriage coach or someone, I mean, can really benefit from these strategies because you done gave us strategies already. I mean, these questions is something, maybe configuring a little bit different, but those same questions can be used, in a marriage session between a couple that's having conflict, or whatever. So this is so amazing. I think this can take us a long way in our lives, and 360, just stepping back, doing a 360 on our life and say, you know what, this can help me in a lot of different areas of my life. What strategies do you use to encourage, collaborate information as far as communication amongst team members?
Boy, I could have given you all kinds of fancy ways before COVID that involved post-it notes and getting together in a room and all that happy stuff. And then now it's like, the last workshop I did, I pulled the class. I had 20 people in this online workshop, and I pulled the class for who's going back in the office, right? Like, I want to know, even if it's like a 3-day-a-week thing, whatever, nobody out of 20 people in a public class that I was teaching online last week, not one person had any sort of plan to go back in the office or even a few days a week. So we really got to embrace technology. So some of the tools all have goofy names, but and I'm not trying to give any one tool a plug because I certainly don't benefit from that. But a common one I hear is Slack, because people can just chat online, or even chat in things like Microsoft Teams. My own team keeps it really simple. We have a group text, and that thing is that's like our mode of communication, even during the day, right? Or before coming into the office, because we do a bit of both. We do work out of the office and in the office. And so I think you got to get really creative with the technology. And you and I are looking at each other because we have our cameras turned on. Yeah. So I think a big problem for some of these organizations that are staying virtual is that people are never turning their camera on. So I think if they're going to collaborate more effectively, there's got to be some sort of an agreement about turning the cameras on, even if it's just for a little bit. Like I get it. I get, like, being in front of a camera 8 hours a day. Yeah, gross. But could you respect each other in some crucial conversations or key conversations enough to just have that on? Because 60 to 90% of human communication is nonverbal. And there's a pretty wide range there. But if you go look at those studies, I mean, the low end is 60. So it's still over half. So if we're not seeing each other, we're missing a lot of the message. So I think it's important to leverage the technology that's available for us to collaborate.
So true. That is a knowledge bomb. Ooh, this is good. This is good. This is good. What are some practical leadership growth tips, tools, advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential?
So you did say growth. So growth only comes from discomfort. Growth doesn't come from doing the same thing and being complacent. So growth only comes from a little discomfort. So I've got a couple tips. Firstly, try to stop making assumptions, which is like next to impossible, because we all do it 24/7. That's that little voice I mentioned earlier, that amygdala, your ego, which isn't the same as egotistical. Nobody's saying you're egotistical. It's just that ego tells you things. For example, I could be, wondering where the heck my teammate is. What the heck? We agreed he was going to be here at 5:00. He's not here. Oh, he's just screwing around again. Oh, he just forgot. He blew me off.
Wow.
Is any of that true? Do I know any of that for a fact? No, that's just a bunch of stories I'm telling myself. So, and if you start paying attention to how much we assume, you'll notice how much we do it. Now, it's constant. I was on a meeting with some colleagues for a large organization last week, and it drove me nuts because almost everything these people were bringing up were assumptions. Just so your ego's not your amigo. Get that thing to zip it. What do we know for sure? What do we know for sure? What can we verify? The second one, we all get feedback all the time. I get feedback all the time, especially doing online workshops and putting myself out there. And what's really hard sometimes is the way the feedback is delivered. But if we're going to grow, because you said growth, right? So we got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I try to respond with thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for the courage to be honest with me, regardless of how that feedback is delivered. The feedback that hurts, that you feel that little pang right in here, I have found there's always an element of truth in it. That's why you get that little pang, because you're like, oh, this sucks to hear and this really hurts. But if I'm going to grow, I'm going to look for the truth. I'm going to look for the truth in the feedback. So I'm not going to let, that little internal voice start being defensive and start, rebutting. That's why I'm trying really hard. And so sharing this tip with your folks, your listeners, for my very first response to be, thank you for being honest with me. Because it shuts that voice down. And it also gets me thinking about, okay, where's the truth in that? Yeah. What little nugget can I take from that? No matter if it hurts or not, because it usually does if it's true. And then my third tip is an acronym, WAIT, wait to talk. WAIT stands for why am I talking? Why am I talking? It's hard to listen when you're talking. So you may have to take a beat. Sometimes I think we wait to talk. Sometimes I think we get uncomfortable with silence. So I like that little, why am I talking?
What a load of knowledge bombs. Wow. Angela, this is amazing. And we're definitely going to be helped on today. I really love this phrase. Your ego is not your amigo. I wrote it down. I think it's awesome. I heard you say it the first time. I was like, oh, that's cool. Then you said it again. I was like, oh, wow. And the third time, it just really, I think it hit me the third time. So I think you just used one of your strategies on me by repeating the same thing. And so we got it. We got it that third time. So thank you, Angela.
My team had that put on t-shirts. We have t-shirts that say your ego is not your amigo on the back. And it's been said by many, many smarter people on this planet over the years, but I really like it. So.
I like it too. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm giving credit to you because you're the first person.
Yeah, I may be the way you heard it, but I am certainly not the first. And when I tried really hard years ago to find the attribution, because like you, I'm a stickler for that. Way too many people have said it and the origin is lost, but.
Thank you for all this. Oh, you just dropped a load of information for us. Someone right now that's listening like, man, I want to know more. I want to know more about what Angela does. So I'm going to ask you the question that everyone is waiting on. If someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
If they go to scrumfiles.com, I will send them 3 easy ways to get started with Scrum and Agile. They'll get a little download. They'll get a little gift. 3 easy ways to get started with Scrum and Agile if they go to scrumfiles.com. If that's not their jam and they just want to find me on social media, I tend to hang out on LinkedIn. But with a name like Angela Johnson, there's like 30,000 Angela Johnsons on LinkedIn. So you got to put in Angela Johnson Scrum.
Gotcha.
And then I pop right up.
Gotcha. Angela Johnson Scrum. And I just want to tell you, on behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, we want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thanks for having me.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. So we want to thank you for joining us today. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.